And indicate that this is
Well, good afternoon, everyone. We'd like to start. Welcome along to our general meeting. Thank you, everyone, all the councillors for attending here today. We have an apology from Councillor Nixon, who's away this week. So, we need to formalize her apology. Would someone like to move Councillor Nixon's apology? Yes, moved by Councillor Lacey, seconded Councillor Brimble-Cone. All in favour? Against? Thank you. All right, is there any other leaves of absence required? Yes, Councillor Lacey.
And then like the next meeting, next general meeting.
Next general meeting will be when, March? 28th of March.
And that is no longer.
That's one out or left. So, Councillor Dalton, would someone like to move those two apologies, please, or leave of absences, please? Moved by Councillor Rolls, seconded Councillor McIndoe. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Sure, you like just supporting yourselves there. Very good. Well, councillors, and certainly welcome to our gallery and all those premiers that have logged on this afternoon. We have with us Pastor Steve Jench from the Emerald Lutheran Church, and certainly one of the long-serving members of Churches Together in Emerald, which has been obviously very, very prominent, certainly in the community all over the Central Heights. And I'll ask Pastor Steve if he could lead us in prayer before our meeting. Thank you, Pastor Steve.
I begin in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Friends, while serving in 4 of the 5 parishes in which I was stationed, namely at Laidley, at Cleve, Yorktown, and here at Emerald, I've either known church members or had close friends who were florists. And I was amazed by the skills of those women. All of them had the amazing ability to bring out the best in their flowers. Whenever the displays in their front windows began to look a little bit tired or the blossoms started to lower their heads, the ladies would reach for their atomizers filled with water, Then with just a few sprays of water and some flopping up with their hands, the floral displays were suddenly once again looking $1 million. Their ability to refresh the blooms appeared to be second to none. This year at the Sunflower Festival Parade, the churches in Emerald Churches Together are focusing on the importance of being refreshed. We're doing this by drawing attention to Jesus' promise in Matthew 11:28. Come to me, all of you who are weary and burdened, and I'll give you rest. But there's another very important Bible verse about refreshing others, and it's the one to which I want to focus our attention this afternoon. Proverbs 11 verse 25, which says, "He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed." Here the desires of the council and the desires of the church are clearly on the same page. After all, we're all working towards developing an improved sense of community in our region. We're both striving to assist others to realise that in helping others, everyone actually benefits. Those being helped benefit, so does the community, and so does the person doing the helping. Remember, Proverbs 11:25 plainly states, "He who refreshes others will himself be refreshed." May your faithful acts of community service send ripples of refreshing out into our region, the Central Highlands. It's my hope and my prayer that as you strive to refresh others, you yourselves will also be refreshed in the process. But most of all, may your acts of service be a starting point from which others are encouraged to follow your example. Yes, through you and your efforts, may others come to know, as Proverbs 11:25 tells us, he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. Let's pray. Almighty God, our Heavenly Father, you have established all authority and keep our nation and community under your care. Please bless the leaders in our land, especially those here in the Central Highlands Regional Council. Help them to always act for the refreshing of our region. By their positive example of service and leadership, please help our community to learn that he who refreshes others will himself be refreshed. Be with them now as they meet, and please guide and direct their deliberations and decisions. Please help us also as responsible citizens to always support those in civil authority with our encouragement and our prayers, and to follow their example of community-mindedness and service. We ask this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
Thank you very much, Pastor Steve. And I suppose it's very timely. I think it's almost exactly 12 months since this new council was elected, but it probably is time to pause and refresh, and obviously do those words that Proverbs says, and try and refresh others, refresh ourselves. So it's a very kind word.
Thank you. My pleasure.
All right, councillors, we'll go back to our agendas. It's probably, I would suggest, a little on the leaner side of this particular meeting. We've got a couple of reports there, and there is a closed session at the end of the meeting. And for those that are going that is to answer some rating concessions. So under the closed meeting section, which is D, we'll obviously close the meeting just to consider those couple of assessments. So, councillors, we'll move on to the the confirmations of the previous meeting, which was on Monday, on the 28th of February. So would someone present like to move those? Moved by Councillor Rolston and Councillor Bell. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Any business arising out of those?
Mr. Mayor, just in regards to the feedback on the Retro Street here in Emerald, just wondering, would that be likely to come back in the next month or two, or will we get an update officially through that, or?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that report will be back for consideration, council, at the next meeting. I've done further research. I went through the full files, history on that, and
Thanks, Mr. CEO.
refresh that report.
That was in relation to Easy Street, was it?
Retro
Retro Street, sorry, yeah, sorry, yeah, Retro Street. Nothing else in there, councillors? All right, councillors, the review of outstanding meeting actions. Anything in there that councillors wanted to raise? Nothing in those, councillors? Got under the material personal interest, conflict of interest, personal gifts, there's nothing to declare, councillors. We've had a couple of goes at this today. I think we've pretty well sorted that out. Nothing else to declare. Thank you. Petitions? None made? No. Yeah, just for the, just to, I guess, to report to, for the benefit of those that are streaming and attending this afternoon, there was actually a petition that was lodged earlier today within our communities meeting. Yes. Which was in relation to the flying foxes in Doringa, which has been dealt with as well, and will be responded to, so that was dealt with in that committee. Now, councillors, you would have received a late agenda item, which is in fact the recommendation around the standing committee meetings that we conducted this morning, which were finance and infrastructure, community standing and leadership and governance. We'll actually slot that in there. Normally we would adopt these in the committee recommendations and notes. So is someone happy to move those? Someone that was present, happy to move those? Moved by Councillor Brindlecombe, seconded. Councillor Lacey, all in favour? Against? Thank you. Right. Well, there being no further committee recommendations, we move on to the infrastructure and utilities section of our meeting. And Gerard Jabbar will lead us through the future ownership of LN1 Drain, which is on page 15 of your agendas. I'll let you lead us through that, Gerard.
Through the Mayor, councillors, this is a follow-on on a meeting that we held with representatives of Sunwater on Thursday 15 and Friday 16 December. A range of topics were workshopped with the Sunwater reps and other relevant stakeholders during those 2 days. This report relates specifically to the one matter, which is the future ownership and management of LN1 Drain. Council wished to revisit the draft agreement that we received from Sunwater in January last year. And all we're seeking today is to get Council's in principle agreement that we can go down this path and enter into further discussions with Sunwater and progress this matter. It will obviously be subject to due diligence and other legal and governance considerations. But yes, before you, we're seeking your support for a in principle agreement to go forward and engage in further conversation with Sunwater and resolve this matter in the future.
Councillor, just to add to that, I mean, in the discussion about the ownership of LN1 Drain, I suppose a little bit of history that probably preceded this, after the Commission of Inquiry after the 2008 floods, there's a reference there in those conclusions about determining the ownership of LN1 Drain, which was, I suppose, interesting in that the comment was made by the Commission. And when talked about the determination of the ownership of the drain. Obviously then the contention was actually the operation of I suppose ultimately the responsibility, and obviously it belongs to Sunwater. It was designed and had capacity about a 1 in 20 capacity on the land certainly to the west and the northwest of Emerald. But obviously over time and the encroachment of the urban area into the drain, certainly the drain catchment area, there has been, I suppose, an incremental and ongoing input from this council and previous councils insofar as I suppose you'd say the share or pro rata stormwater capacity that that drain then took. So over time there's been, I suppose, it'd be fair to say there are an updating of the agreement between Sunwater and the relevant local authority about its operation. Obviously the floods in 2008 and 2010-11 then tested, I suppose, or ground truth, the operation of that and its either obstruction or direction of water around the floodplain, and having, I suppose, the opportunity of then being armed with that knowledge and certainly the operation of the drain itself. Sunwater, I suppose, have always sought to, I suppose, in terms of management and its value to or its greater value to which party, they've strongly indicated that they would like us to manage that. In 2012, I think there was through a royalties of regions process, there was an application made to upgrade certainly the drain and where the LN1 drain crosses the Gregory Highway, which didn't attract funding at the time. However, as a bit of a background, TMR in fact had done some planning about improving that, but it was put on hold on the basis of further investigations by, I think, council about more over the floodplain itself. So there is in fact and has been an intent that would have been improved, certainly the road crossing, and Sunwater did in fact did actually complete some works that were sort of indicated might be necessary after the flood events. However, there are also some recommendations about other things that can happen to those drains. So it would be fair to say that in terms of its importance and its, and the likely work that would need to be done on that drain, under Sunwater's charter, the imperative is certainly not there, the same as ours would be. So I guess it was my, I suppose, and with others here, the discussion was very careful about not committing to anything, but it was our intent that it perhaps would be better managed, certainly for the long term, by Central Highlands Regional Council. We certainly did not commit to anything, but we indicated that may be the case. But we certainly put a rider on it around the fact that we had the opportunity, I suppose, with the Minister, who coincidentally is the Minister for Sunwater and also for TMR, that there might be the opportunity of having an amount of money allocated to those works, and that perhaps might be a catalyst for us to make a decision in respect of our ongoing management of it. And in fact, I suppose, quite frankly, that would extend to ownership. So that was the discussion, that's where it sits. So the prerogative would be that depending on what council feels is the right decision in respect of LN1 drain and certainly its future management, we can go back to Sunwater. And as I said, Gerard is asking here for an in-principle agreement to discuss that along those lines. So if councillors have any other questions, or certainly there is an ongoing cost obviously to the community because it would be an asset then that we would be maintaining. There would certainly be some benefits, I suppose, in the fact that it's riparian to lots of our rural residential areas, and there certainly could be some access to it, recreational potential around alongside of it without there being a danger. So all those things considered, that's the decision we really need to work on today. So I think Gerard's just looking for that clear direction as to whether that would be something you want to do. Over to you.
To the chair, what kind of ongoing maintenance costs, like if you just think of the, well, I guess, or whatever, the general maintenance, not repairs, would you expect to over that piece of land?
Through the Mayor, Councillor, We, at this stage, only have the regional upgrade cost estimates. I'm getting somebody on board in the next week or so to do a bit of work for me around the whole ancillary, recreation infrastructure, and we will get them to also give us some idea of the maintenance costs potentially. So yes, we're busy developing a bit more information in terms of the business case for our benefit, but obviously we'll also have to be guided by what historically Sunwater did. So clearly during due diligence, we'll expect them to indicate to us what they are today on revenues, costs, etc., etc. So there's still a lot of work to be done around the whole of life cost. I can't give you a categorical answer on whole of life.
Yes, Kristen?
Yeah, you said, I think you said it's a 1 in 20, is that correct?
That's the functional design of the drone.
Yeah. So, it'd nearly be imperative that it was increased to a 1 in 100.
Sorry,
or 1 in.
I just want to categorize, probably I need to clarify that a bit better, and I'm certainly not an engineer, as Gerard well knows. The design in a 1 in 20 is designed for, in a storm event, obviously, over the irrigation area that it's draining, to take away that water. The impact, I suppose, that they were waiting for in terms of its impact on the floodplain, it's not so much the water that was going to discharge from the area that it services, it was more the impediment or the directional impact that it has on the floodplain water that's travelling the other way. So in fact, there isn't probably the capacity to increase the drain. It's more so management of it, cutting down the sides, having some flow paths around it and over it, which was, where water discharged, and certainly down the back part of the floodplain and then the floodplain, and also the directional sort of capacity that it has on the western side. So it's about if it stays in Sunwater's operational management, they are only obliged to look at those things that it's actually designed for it there. Whereas to us, it's more of a structured and flood mitigation and the impacts on us on this side, and having control of that. And that's probably the nuts of it.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mr. Mead, your 1 in 20, just for clarification, you're talking the slope? You're not talking...
No, 1 in 20 rainfall.
Through the Mayor Council, just to quantify as well, the big challenge with the Island 1 drain isn't just on water. We have to make it clear that it's constricted in its current arrangement with the culverts on the Hospital Road. So it is more than actually just some water at the end of the day. We need a commitment also from TMI to upgrade those culverts, else none of this work has any relevance. If the culverts are increased, the capacity is increased, we can increase the capacity of the draining.
But we need to increase if we're going to take it over, we really need to increase the capacity of the crossing on the Western Road, so.
Down to Tyson Road.
Yeah.
You'll notice in the attachments there's a couple of schematics and that is indicate the original proposed scope, and you can see the enlargement section is from Tyson or the Cap Highway back over Hogan's all the way up to the culverts. Downstream it seems to, based on the modelling today, downstream it seems to function fine. It's simply with the culverts on the highway, Gregory Highway, on Hospital Road, that's basically the biggest constraint.
There is, so just to further clarify, Councillor Rolfe, are we discussing this also with TMR or Queensland Rail in regards to the crossing on the western side and predominantly the new piping system that doesn't seem to have a big enough allowance there on the rail line? I see on the schematic or on the drawing that you provided, it cuts short of the highway, where it should possibly be taking in the rail line damming effect as well.
There is on page 16, there is that does take into that drainage area there, but doesn't cover your doesn't say what work goes there. So
Yeah. It just shows that it's on the northern side of the highway, and knowing full well, I think the piping drainage under the rail line is a restriction as well.
I think when you're discussing actually the structure itself, Ellenwood Drain actually commences there, it starts at the highway, it doesn't actually extend across onto Selma Road on the southern side of the road. So when they're talking about, I suppose, this particular structure, it's about just the formed, levee two-sided structure that actually starts on the northern side of the Capricorn Highway and heads across, as I said, through Hogan's Road, around the back of Cameron Road, and then.
Can we have that verified then?
Sorry?
Can we have that verified, that it is actually, because that's another level of work.
Well, see, and I suppose that's a grey area because, in fact, the floodplain on the outbreak, which is above Selma Weir, and actually heads across there, isn't actually part of effectively some water drainage. It's actually the floodplain, and I'm sure that's probably, that'd be something that would need to be worked out. But you can have it. As I say, I think it's clarified, but it actually doesn't form part of the Ellenwood Drain, as far as I'm aware of it. Certainly.
Through the Mayor, Councillors, we just have to understand the distinct difference between Ellenwood Drain as a lesser flood management structure versus DFE Q100 when the Nagoa River floods. So if you exclude that, the 1 in 10 year or 1 in 20 year scenario deals with the local catchment, which is indicated there. So essentially, you're not talking about how the drain. We're not talking here about how Ellenwood Drain functions in the larger event. There is benefit in the Q100 plus event, but in terms of the current topic, it is a low capacity drain dealing with local drainage, and that's what we focused on. So the railway line and the culverts underneath the railway line has no relevance on Ellenwood Drain in terms of how it performs in the lesser events. It's only what Councillor McAdoo was referring to is if you had a 2008 or 2010-11 event, that yes, then it may have an impact. And again, there's been plenty of flood modeling, and unfortunately I'm a bit silent on that one. I haven't got the background as to whether or not that those culverts, as they are now, currently would perform adequately in that type of event.
So, in the executive summary, it says, one of the main topics of discussion was the future upgrade options involving all stakeholders, ownership and management. So, really, why are we wanting to take over the Ellenwood Drain if it's, or take over ownership of it if it's not for upgrade, or, is it just going to be managed? Or I would suggest that it be upgraded, but that's.
That is implied. We will not take on this asset unless there's commitment to provide either the funding or the upgrades in part of the process. So that means TMR is involved as well.
Yeah.
So we need the whole package, else it doesn't achieve the outcome.
So if we're going to take it on as a future upgrade, I would suggest that from the council's point of view, it's upgrade for flood mitigation, with flood mitigation in mind.
Fair comment, but again, Ellenwood will never be able to, when I say never, I haven't seen the numbers, but I don't believe it also would have shown up in the Flood Commission report. I don't think Ellenwood Drain will ever achieve Q100 capacity. It is a local drainage structure. So when we say flood mitigation, it will be mitigating localized flooding in lesser events. In the larger event, you get the added benefit, but essentially the whole motivation is we currently discharge that whole catchment, urban catchment, north and south. If you look at the two triangles between the highway and, I'll bring it up there, it's easier. This is our urban catchment draining in there, and there's some more of our northern industrial catchment draining into it. So it is taking on what it was before. Previously it was an urban drain. going through there that we discharged into, the urban development memo discharged into. It was formed as a drainage structure under the Sunwater development of all the other drains. They've got catch drains, what they call them, tailwater drains. So it originally was a natural drain that served as a runoff or a conduit for our urban catchment, principally. All it is now is we're saying that, yeah, we still are one of the major contributors in terms of local drainage into that drain.
So, through the chair, Gerard, is us taking on ownership of this drain the only way that we can get Sunwater and TMR to fund an upgrade of what's required to be upgraded? So I'm trying to...
Well, look, I can answer that, I suppose, because if you understand as it sits at the moment as a piece of infrastructure, there's absolutely no imperative for Sunwater to do or change anything about it other than to just hand it over to the local management group, which is going to happen in the next little while. So, as far as they're concerned, as a piece of infrastructure that's being scrutinised, it was designed for a purpose, which was 1 in 20, and it still does that. So there's no imperative for them to actually change it. The impact, the greater impact, is on this community because A, we use it, and B, is it actually sits across their floodplain. And if you don't have control, effective control of that drain, then we are forever going to be exhorting Sunwater to do something else with it. And really, the operation of that organisation is not really to do anything to it other than to do what it does now. And as more and more growers and farmers actually use or reticulate their own tailwater and actually don't discharge into the drain, there's less and less inclination for them to do anything at all. So rather than being sort of forcing this on us by stealth or having it cost this community, what I'm trying to say is that there is a really great imperative. We do use it, our urban environment discharges into it, so we do need a drain. And the second part is if we're going to have some effective control over any changes to it in the future, it's probably going to be us that can force that, not Sunwater, and want to do that.
Do Sunwater at present charge a drainage fee for those?
But as I said to you, but as more and more of those growers then reticulate their tailwater, they contribute less to the drainage. That revenue would actually go to the local management group and or us but I would suggest to you that in good water use practice over time, there'll be very little. What it does take up then is as you know, with green, red and blue water flows, and there's the rainfall event that exceeds 1 in 20, which will overstep all their drainage and weiring in the drainage sections. That water's got to run off, and that's when the L1 drain will work. So as I see it, it's a piece of infrastructure that will sit in our urban environment that contributes, that really needs to be, it's important to have flood mitigation. So you either accept it and manage, I suppose, those costs, or it sits with someone else and you have no control over it other than to try and get an agreement every couple of years. So, that's probably the alternatives.
Through the Mayor, Councillor, sorry, I had the wrong map for catchment. That's the catchment. So you can see our urban footprint that drains into that drain, north and south of the drain. It is quite significant, and therefore, yes, we have a greater vested interest in the drain than Sunwater would have, because all they're catering for is the agricultural land to the west.
So Gerard, those offshoots, those red ones, they're not part of the...
No.
No. So it is just what's in black, the next photo?
Yes, the screen down on black, yes, black and the red section.
The red section.
On the east.
Yeah.
So just the red on the eastern section, on the right-hand side, not further up towards the highway in pink?
No, just the red to where it goes through the back of onto Moffat Road and then down to the river, yeah. Or the end of the region.
Maybe through the mayor again, councillors, the answer is simple. I don't think council or we can commit to any agreement unless we bring it back to you. So
Yes.
the fundamental challenge, and as much as Councillor Daniel's asking about what's the maintenance cost, I believe there will be significant due diligence done on the whole of life. And we'll bring it to council accordingly. But I think the intent is to strike the fundamental principles of transfer of ownership and future maintenance with Sunwater before we even get there. So I think there'll be probably more of a legal wrangle before we get to any of the due diligence from the whole of life cost of this infrastructure.
Just one more question. I know it'll come out in the next report, I'm sure, but what's the actual distances in width we're talking? What's the corridor width of that drain existing?
I think it's quite significant actually.
It'd be more than a chain each side, and probably 4 or 5 chain across. So that's 150 metres.
So is that actually owned by, who's it?
That's
So
all
that's
one
the
is owned
Sunwater.
And it varies, it narrows
Yeah, it
down and
does.
widens out, yeah.
But, yeah. So it's not just the drain owned by Sunwater, it's actually the verge.
Yeah.
It'll be the whole easement, or if it's on the easement, or I haven't actually checked the tenure, but if parts of, say, other one drain further down is on the easement. But basically it'll be the whole land parcel, not just the drain.
I think you can see that red section, I suppose you'd say, to the top right-hand side, I mean, between Knoll Point Stable and the race course, it could be 300 metres wide there.
It is.
Quite wide. So, and it's designed that way to sort of, to peel off, because it's very flat across there, and it's very difficult to get, I suppose, shift soil and earth to keep that water moving down to the river there. So. But in doing that, it actually puts a structure on a very shallow floodplain. So, as I say, it's pretty critical at some points there. There's some recommendations that CHRC recommended about, the heights of some of those banks. It actually contributed to, I guess you'd say, afflux upstream. So. Right, so in principle, is someone happy to move? Move that, Councillor Bell, seconded by Councillor McIndoe. All those in favour? Against? Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Stuart. And enjoy your tour tomorrow. I'm sure that you'll sleep easy here. Our next report is from our communities section. I'll hand over to, for those who don't know, Daniel Fletcher from the gallery. If you haven't actually seen Daniel here for a couple of meetings, Daniel Fletcher is our new General Manager of Communities. I'll ask him to introduce Jamie McCarthy.
Thank you, through Mr. Mayor and councillors. This report is an adoption of a temporary local planning instrument, which was sent back in November last year, so we received a response on the 6th of March this year. I'll hand it over to Carol and Jamie to provide any details.
So as everybody's aware, we identified concern in our planning conditions around filling in the floodplain, the economic development up to 100 cubic metres. So it was proposed that council would adopt prepare a temporary local planning instrument as a bit of a band-aid fix to this, to facilitate the process of doing a major amendment to permanently in our scheme. So we submitted to the state government last year, and they have approved us to proceed to adoption if council would like, which was received on the 6th of March. So the report's recommending that we do adopt the temporary local planning instrument, and it's also recommending that we decide to make a major amendment to our planning scheme to fix those provisions in there at the moment. The temporary local planning instrument only has a maximum effect of 12 months, so that's the reason for the additional resolution recommendations being into.
So in layman's terms, Jamie, this goes back to that application, was it in Robert Street or one of those? Originally, which was around application in the industrial area there, halfway along, just past 9 at 10, a site there that obviously to get any, I suppose, use out of it was filled. So this, obviously, this planning instrument actually formalises that risk around those sorts of things. So, council have any questions? It's a shame because there's some great subsection numbers and operational works and all sorts of headings here that are quite outstanding. So obviously the adoption is that the Central Highlands Regional Council adopt temporary local planning instrument 01/2016, which is an operational work within a flood hazard area in accordance with step 5.1 of section 4.2.1 of statutory guideline 01/16, making and amending local planning instruments and so forth. So I just wanted to read that out because there were so many words that were such an appeal to planners. And then further, that Central Highlands Regional Council will decide to make the major amendments to the scheme to incorporate that. So someone happy to move that? Too many numbers for you? Not for Councillor Brimble. Moved by Councillor Goldman-Smith, seconded Councillor Brimble-Cone. All in favour? Against? Thank you. Thank you very much, Jamie and Carl. Thank you, Daniel.
Well done.
That's a record. So there's a clue for anyone. If you want to baffle councillors, just bring lots of numbers and lots of big words and we're okay. It'll all happen. But no, that's obviously a progression of that, some of that flood planning stuff that we've done. Well, I think that sort of slips us through to the CEO's report. Is that right? Correct. Michael, yeah, we'll leave it with you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now, the Mayor has been invited with the visit the Adani operations in India with the Premier of Queensland, and it's accompanied with 5 other regional local government mayors. And it's a trade mission that Anastasia Palaszczuk has taken to India to promote Queensland and to meet with the Adani people to promote the benefits of their mining operation would bring to Queensland and the resources available. That's the mayors of Townsville, Mackay, Whitsunday, Rockhampton, Gladstone and Central Highlands. And it needs the approval of council for the mayor to be part of that delegation. International travel, as per council's guidelines, international travel requires approval. And I seek that approval from council for allowing to hit the airways tomorrow.
So in terms of whole cost, I'm prepared to give some sort of foreign disease to carry with me for the rest of my natural life, but I'm happy to do that in terms of further into the benefits.
Just don't bring it back and spread it all around.
No, look, it's, and we've only just received the itinerary, so, or the final itinerary, so the proposal is that we fly to Mumbai and then to a place called Puj, which is in the north-western corner of India towards the Gulf of Kutch, where Adani have a significant, it's called Special Economic Zone, which is a big port on the northwestern side. It's actually closer to the Pakistan border than it is probably to anywhere else. So we'll visit Adani's port there, then back to Mumbai, and then back to Chennai to Murathai, which is where Adani manufacture their solar panels, and to have a look at the world's largest solar farm there, which is I think 650 megawatt solar farm in that location, and then back to Emerald by next Monday. So with the good grace of this council, I'll be leaving tomorrow afternoon and back on Monday, so making sure I'm back at work. So is there any other questions, council?
Can you give us some indication of what your thoughts are on what you will put to Adani?
Absolutely. And as you can see with Acting TO's report there, Sandra Hobbs is going to attend. Sandra has probably the longest relationship with Adani representatives in Australia. And I suppose unofficially she's been considered a person that's been giving them a lot of input in terms of their local buy policy when they actually get on the ground. So it's not necessarily just about the Central Highlands, but all those council areas and businesses that will be impacted by Adani procurement. Certainly Sandra has been indicated as the person who will be probably contributing to that local buy. In terms of Central Highlands, Adani have always clearly indicated that more so than perhaps the fact that we always have been identified as a service centre. The people in this community, in this region, have those skills and industry knowledge that will obviously benefit their mine, and notwithstanding the fact that we're located certainly to the south of the service area, the reality is those skills are here, so they will tap into those. There are businesses that have already indicated that they will be taking those opportunities, and the roadshow that came through here in January was positive to those aspirations for those people. The second thing is that they've clearly identified a very strong correlation with our farming area here. As you know, most culture in India is based around vegan or vegetarianism, so they're not great meat eaters, and obviously the consumption of pulses and beans is probably some of the greatest in the world. They've indicated a great need, particularly after the results of our last winter chickpea crop, where there was probably some 300,000 to 400,000 tonne of chickpea from this area, and certainly north, that they would be keen to establish more of an agri presence in the Central Highlands. And of course, the third thing is they have indicated, as of recently, and as of in the last week, there's strong support for a location somewhere near Emerald for a solar farm, which they'd like to proceed with. And I think in light of the success of the state government actually having an arrangement now with Energex to consume power from solar farms, that sort of precedent has been set. They see the Central Highlands out of all of the regions that they're dealing with around certainly this resource opportunity that is having the greater diversity, which is what we talk about. And we'd just be keen, I'm sure we have converted the Australian Adani representatives. They've been seen, participated in all the events that we've had in our region. And when we actually get to India, we'll have the opportunity of sharing those experiences and enhancing, I suppose, the story around our place with the chairman and other board directors. And obviously, whilst we're with our colleagues from Charters Towers and Mackay and Rockhampton and Gladstone, it's a chance just to obviously make sure that we show a cohesive, I suppose, approach, notwithstanding the fact that there's been quite a competitive process around accessing some of the potential around the site. But it's just a good chance to show the Central Queensland councils as a group as a strong group, and just to give those people, I suppose, some enthusiasm after probably thinking that through the long process they've been through, notwithstanding their own foibles, that we are a good country to deal with, and obviously these are the sorts of people you'll be dealing with in the future. And I think if that can happen, that'd be a big help to those relationships between this region and Adani. So that's probably what I'd hope to achieve in something like 72 hours if we're not on planes, and obviously the chance of sharing we've got some gifts and things for them, and a copy book and some other things that we'd like to share with those people over there. So the Premier's hosting a dinner, and then the Adani people will be hosting a dinner in Mumbai and in Chennai. So we'll get those opportunities to network with those people as well. So, any other questions? All right, well, councillors, that's that recommendation there that you authorise my attendance there as part of that Premier's delegation, bearing in mind that the report also talks about the cost there, certainly for CHDC as well. So someone have a move? Moved by Councillor Brimley, second Councillor Bell. All in favour? Thank you. Thank you on so many levels. I appreciate that very much.
We recommend them into
I'm looking forward to learning how to eat certain foods, yeah. Certainly probably a greater attention on retaining it. So. All right, well, I think we've had a couple of goes at general business today. There's some more general business out of what we discussed today before we go. Any general business?
I'm not out of what we discussed today.
Oh, no, out of any general business at all?
Yes, I have. Yes. There was an email came today about the resolutions from the LGAQ conference, and speaking to the Mayor earlier on, the, it's correspondence relation to resolution 84 that went to the, we think it's to do with the black spot funding. Just get it up, sorry. And my concern is that it's a resolution that started out in Western Queensland the beginning of last year, and it goes to, by the time it goes to the LGAQ conference in October, and then on to wherever, the letter that came back about mobile black spot program additional investment required for regional Queensland, and then they're saying that the round 2 of the black spot funding is at the end of 2016, and we are only just getting notification in the beginning, well after the fact. So it says it's not so much about the resolution as about the process of the resolutions.
So in my discussion with Councillor Rolfe, I mean, obviously what started out as a resolution here in arguably early part of 2016 goes through the process of being responded to effectively a year later and goes past timelines. So I suppose it might be, and I'll leave it at Councillor Rolfe's discretion, but it might be that the result that, you know, those things might have a timeline on it. So if we only have actual results, take those to LGAQ, probably should observe the timelines for the potential funding timelines. I'm not sure that's what you want to do.
For sure, that's fine. I don't know the process of doing that, that's all. Oh, Councillor Bell says it's hard.
It is hard. Well,
Well, it
actually,
should be pushed though, I mean, it is a,
yeah.
there wouldn't be long delay, isn't it, when you have a conference, then we get a vote before. And people's responses back and forward.
Particularly that one which goes to LGAQ, which is effectively a federal government funding package as well.
Well, it is, but we're, you know, they're talking about round 2. I mean, we should be nearly finishing round 3 right now. That's the trouble. So.
Well, I suppose, you know, could we obviously just, I suppose, write a letter to LGAQ just expressing the timeliness of the resolutions. If this looks like there being an issue, that we want to at least address them a little sooner.
And you're on the economic development.
Yeah, the redag is the easy one. That's what they call it apparently. Once a dag and then you redag. But yeah, no, the regional economic development advisory group, I suppose that's good. But I mean, it should be broadly just a letter to LGAQ around the resolutions. If there's a timeliness that's involved, then we should probably, do they want us to indicate that, or do we have the executive kind of, I suppose, give us the opportunity of putting a timeline in? Because they would accept that, and they review those when they accept it. Is that, would that perhaps? Cool. Someone want to resolve to do that? You want to move that? Well, when you see the correct spelling and the construction of those sentences.
Sorry, I was just.
No, it's fine.
So.
Councillor Rob, you have the words there, or?
In regards to timing of responses to conference resolutions. Use like, use resolution 84 as an example. It's, in resolution 84, they quote the funding announced in what was achieved in 2016 for the previous funding rounds. And the third round of funding, which is the pertinent one, is 60 million, which will become available in 2017. It was 220 million for the 3 rounds.
So that's another issue.
The LGAQ's letter to the Minister was on the 4th of November. So let's take some ministerial, and the LGAQ's advice was dated 10th of March this year, so.
So it's not so much the timing, to the word, it should be timeliness, shouldn't it? Yeah. Marnie, can you? Okay, we'll raise it with the yeah. And that doesn't restrict it in this one, but if there is obviously, if people are reading the resolution and they know that there's some timeframes on it, they should be able to respond or at least raise it again. So, you happy with that?
Yes, thank you.
Moved by Councillor Roth, seconded. Councillor Brimble-Cone, all in favour? Against? Thank you. Right, any?
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to share with you and the rest of the council. Last night I had the privilege of attending the Springsure Work Camp Community Advisory Committee meeting. As you would be aware, Queensland Corrections operate a facility at Springsure involving low-risk prisoners doing community orientated work. And I have a report here from the supervisor on the work and activities that they've undertaken in the Springsure area in the last 4 months, so December, January, February and March, and I just want to say what an amazing amount of work that these guys do. There's over 1,400 hours, 1,300 hours involving the prisoners and some government and non-government agencies. But some of the work that's been undertaken and delivered in the community is just outstanding. Some examples of the work they've done in that last quarter have been some work at the old framework for the Springsure Golf Club, the Springsure Lions, and this has been like the construction of the 2-bay colour-coded shed. There's been some work done at the cemetery on the old rotunda. The Bowls Club, as I said, the Springsure Working Horse Association, they've just, there's a whole heap of pictures and things there in relation to some of the work that they've done, not just on the last 3 to 4 months, but also examples of the last 12 months. So I thought that would be nice to share so you can get a feeling for the valuable work that they do in our community.
Councillor Goldsmith, I mean, you know, I think just recently you might have seen that the Visitor Information Centre even benefited from more shelving and racks over there that might survive a little more inundation at some stage, but it's just, you know, it's the invaluable sort of small projects that they immediately follow up on. It's just fantastic. As you say, 1,400 hours, and that's just in the last quarter.
It's really incredible. Like the work that they do in our community, we just don't have the volunteers to do it. So, the Port Rocket Lions Park is another example. The interpretation signage at Minerva National Park, the shed at the Pony Club, the shed at the police station, the shed at the Lions Skate Park. It's just drainage at the golf club. It just goes on and on. Loading ramps, fabulous.
So, Councillor Goldsmith, you're happy to table those just for people's reading? Thank you. Any other general business? Councillor Bell.
Mr. Mayor, I have an interest in this particular matter. I'll bring it forward to you, Council, but and I normally seek to provide some advice pre-meeting in regards to this particular issue, but time just doesn't allow. But just in regards to the GP Super Clinic or the Animal Medical Clinic, we've made application some time back to the federal government for a substantive 50% grant, which will be around about $70,000, $80,000 and all up. So putting some new equipment in regards to telehealth, training of doctors, nurses, allied health, and for promotion of health through the similar sort of system. The reason I'm bringing this to council today is because council still has this ownership relationship with us that needs probably council needs to be aware of what's happening. What we've done is we've, along with federal government for things like surface hubs, which will fall in line very nicely with what council report here, there's communications between the council sites. So we're looking at 3 of those, 1 mobile and 2 fixed, which will allow us then to communicate through council's devices in regards to things like mental health exposés, seminars, whatever, as well as us being able then to link to our universities. So we have 5 medical practitioners in our practice at the moment that are doing the Rural Generalist program, and they require considerable linkages to the universities which they're attached. That needs to be, and there's a training program that's around there for not only our doctors, but doctors at the hospital, other places. There's a whole heap of reasons why you want to have this thing, as well as us being able to allow our specialists to come to the place down, do some surgeries, and others to do telehealth after they return to surgeons return to Brisbane and the patients are still here. It saves them able to travel and move around. So there's a whole heap of reasons why we think this is a good idea. It harmonises with the council's investment into a Microsoft framework, which Surface Hubs are, and would allow us, I think, in the longer term to, if we need to and can, to us to do things in, say, places like Springshaw, Pella, Duringa, Blackwater at the moment, and if these things, if council extends its network of Surface Hubs, we can start to have some relationships and linkages with that as well. We're also looking at probably once or 2 times a week in one of these devices being able to run health promotion and health education processes with PHN and other people. So one of our rooms has been made available, one of the larger rooms holds about 50 people. So people do a little TED talk, or others might be on diabetes, might be on maternity issues, or anything. So, so we're looking at trying to set up that framework for that. Application goes into the federal government today. They need a number of referees, but also some consent or understanding from our leasing partner. So I was just wondering if, and I might leave the room or council decides on this, but if the council would support that recommendation, that application for will be about 35,000 from the feds and 35,000 from the GP Super Clinic ourselves out of our own cash, to do a $70,000 investment in what we think is going to be a great IT experience for public health promotion, education, as well as medical training. Do you understand that?
Tim.
What is our plug comment?
For Mr. Mayor, I sit on that board too, so I probably should be present.
No, well, that's fine. And as I said, as Councillor Beltane just raised it, if you feel free to declare your interest, and if we are going to determine this, I suppose we should leave room to it as well. Thank you, Councillor Gordon. Well, councillors, that matter has been raised, and obviously before that, and Councillor Bell and Councillor Gordon-Smith have declared their interest, and certainly on the basis of very short notice, the proposal has obviously been put to you, so they'll not participate in any decision around it. So what Councillor Bell's asking for there is just obviously the reference to go with, and the support, I suppose, which they could ask at any time for, and lots of people obviously do, support for the applications. Do councillors have any questions? I mean, obviously they're not here to answer those questions, but certainly.
So Councillor Bell indicated that what's the ownership or the leasing of the ownership between council and the Emerald Medical Clinic?
Well, as I said, it's a long-term lease. The land is actually owned by Central Collins Regional Council. In order to, I suppose you'd say, quit the federal government's funding for the Super GP Clinic back, and this goes back 7 years, probably a bit more, then obviously the $5 million that was allocated wouldn't acquire the land and build the clinic. So council entered into a long-term lease, as I understand.
Yes.
So that's we in fact are the registered owners of the land, and GP Super Clinic in whatever shape or form that entity is the lessee.
We're still finalising the rest.
Yes, so that's still
So
being
they're on an
finalised.
interim permit arrangement at the moment, and within the next few months, the formal lease will be finalised.
So,
So, through the chair, I think what they're asking for is not funding though,
No,
it's just
not
for
the
the
funding, just for the reference for their
funding
application.
application. They're not asking for money from us.
Is this something that would usually go to council
Um,
or asking for a reference?
Yes, yeah, to support funding applications, yeah, absolutely, for any, community bodies that may be in our, facilities, we would support funding applications.
I know, but to this forum, rather than just going to,
well, it should be a decision of council.
Yeah.
No one has the executive role, the executive right to make the decision. You know, certainly in different other funding applications, you know, council have been asked just for support. It's where it's not necessarily related to our business, and we can provide that. But certainly when this is around their business, that's the linkage here. So that's the proper way to do it. So it's really for our determination. So can anyone see any problem with that or? So community was happy to do that, happy to move it. We'll move by Councillor McIntyre, seconded Councillor Daniels. That the Central Island through the council provide a letter of support to the application made by the DP District Clinic to the federal government for the funding of community. So we might even get the naming of that fund to more formally recognise that in your response. So councillors happy with that?
Yep.
You've observed the interest that the two councillors have declared. So happy to vote on that. All in favour? Against? Thank you. I'm going to recall that for councillor too. Right, well, we've got, but any more general business, sorry? We'll get this in before Councillor Bell gets back. Other general business?
No, I recommend it was practice.
Well, councillors, there's no more general business. What we might do is, I think it's our usual practice. Did you want to just hit the high notes on our committee meetings from this morning for our gallery and for our live streamers who did the login this morning? And then we'll go to closed session. So, yeah, Councillor Goldsmith, you can lead off. Thank you very much.
Two really high notes of the Finance and Infrastructure Committee meeting this morning. And one came from the Infrastructure and Utilities section, that was in relation to supply of water to the Blackwater School, the Blackwater State High. And a little bit about the history, and that has been that school oval has previously received raw water to irrigate the school ovals, and due to a number of reasons, mainly that the pipe work has been breaking a number of times. The service was discontinued in 2014. So the school recently have commenced inquiry about how that can be reinstated. So a resolution's come around that the Central Highlands Regional Council commenced discussions with the Blackwater State High School to provide raw, potable or treated effluent water for irrigation for their school ovals on the basis that the provision of the water would be at no additional cost to council. And the second high note came from the corporate services section, and that was the rescinding of the current credit management policy, which was adopted by council back in 2012. And at the time, the purpose of that policy was to ensure that the council implemented a reasoned and structured approach to credit management, which included appropriate controls to mitigate the risk of default for council's customers. In line with the council policy development framework adopted in 2016, the current credit management policy will be replaced with an administrative procedure and be adopted by the CEO or delegate. So in line with that summary, a resolution came about that the Finance and Infrastructure Committee rescind the credit management policy on the basis that it will be replaced by an administrative procedure and guidelines managed and under the delegations of the CEO. And that was it.
Very good, thank you. Councillor Goldsmith. Charlie, your community has been through?
Standing committee, basically just the one main issue come up, which was the Flying Fox management update, how that's progressing. There's one private contractor, there's not supervising, but going ahead with the dispersal, which will happen soon.
Yeah, I think so.
Would you like to?
Yeah,
comment on that?
through you, Mr. Chair, if I can add something that was discussed at communities, I identified that the dispersal was going to take place immediately. However, I followed up with an email to everybody to let them know that due to the inclement weather that's the Bureau of Meteorology have forecasted, the dispersal activities will be postponed to Monday the 20th now at this stage. So, for obvious reasons, we can't disperse any of the flying fox during that type of weather or the possibility of that weather.
Delayed slightly.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Daniel. Thank you, Charlie. Leadership.
Two topics this morning. We had some reports come back to us regarding investigating our insurance policy, reviewing parts of that to try and decrease some of our costs, and also a report on our strategy that went to that has gone back to the community for some feedback. So that's two of the topics. I don't know if you want to address that further.
What's it, sorry?
Yeah, just that survey that was going around. There was a mention that you want to mention that to our online viewers.
Yeah, okay, that was a QE, David, yeah. So, I suppose, and it's probably for the benefit of our live streamers and certainly our gallery, I mean, there has been our corporate plan or the review of it and people's response has been, I suppose, requested, and it's gone through a number of social media and certainly conventional media, looking for input and feedback on the changes to that corporate plan or the proposal for that corporate plan. So if at this stage, I think the indications were that we had probably about 59 or 60 responses and through all those different formats. I'm hoping that's because I think it's probably to the point and constructive, but I mean, if those people have just overlooked at it, there's the opportunity to, I'm sure this council would like the opportunity for all and sundry to provide feedback to those new values and those new corporate, I suppose, plans to have some life, I suppose, and just see what we proposed in there before we actually start our operational planning part of that. So that is just a call out to everyone. Certainly, if you haven't had the opportunity, get on our website. The survey's there. Take the survey for those that haven't done that. And yeah, by all means, let's have that feedback and let's make this plan work for everyone. So looking forward to that. Thank you very much, David, for the reference. Right, councillors, if there's no other general business, we'll move into closed session. For those, thank you, Merlene. I was going to say Merlene, it's Margaret, but it's
Penny and Joan.
sorry. Penny and Joan, thank you very much for coming along. Appreciate it. We always get worried when you don't turn up, so thank you very much for turning up.
And you should have mentioned, Mr. Mayor.
We come along, it's difficult. I did try live streaming this morning, I was in the meeting. Charlie, I can always hear you.
Yeah.
And Alan. And by golly, it's hard to hear a lot of the others.
Yeah, that's all right. Taking on board.
And Mr. Mayor, we should mention that Penny, I thought you might have been late, because you're still getting over your 70th birthday celebrations. We're very happy with everyone here for your birthday.
Thank you very much. It hasn't finished yet. Nobody else has had a week long
celebration.
But I haven't got a dinner party tonight.
Oh, good.
Happy birthday,
Penny.
Good on you, Penny.
And we can certainly hear Joan when she speaks, so thank you very much for speaking. You always cost me later on. All right. Well, councillors, can open the move to the closed session, please. Moved by Councillor Wimble, and Councillor Rodman Smith. All in favour? Against? Thank you.